And the reason it's prominent is because Bhagavatam is supposed to place bhakti in our hearts. It is science. As I said so many times, and maybe I mentioned this, I'll mention it again. If you regress the time back culturally, anthropologically, socially, linguistically, this is exactly how a science book would look like 5,000 years ago. I'm not blowing smoke up your dhotis. I'm serious. I can prove you linguistically. I can prove you anthropologically that this is exactly how a science book would look like. So what happened since then? Why did a science book start to now? For some people, some population, looks like some Hindu Dharma book. There is some reasons behind it. Some collateral damage, I can say. But that's where it's come up to. But now our job, there is spiritual science, but we need spiritual scientists. What good is a spiritual science if there's no spiritual scientists? You know what I'm trying to say? So we need to become spiritual scientists and present it in the way it was meant to be. A spiritual consciousness science. It's a science of consciousness. Yeah? So that's our job. So we're going to do some thinking. Thinking is extremely dangerous thing to do in these days. It's forbidden and prohibited. It's like the fifth sin. But we'll do some generally out in the community. If you're thinking, people are worried, oh, he's thinking. So in Bhagavatam class, it's okay, we can do some thinking. So we'll do some thinking. And I'll try to do as best as I can. I'll use as simple language as I can. And let's see. So how did this spiritual science, how was it meant to be originally? And I'll try to draw some parallels from the academic world currently. I was actually trained as an economist, but I had some electives when I was doing my universities, and I stayed in uni for, I don't know, six or 8 years or something. But I had some electives where I would go into philosophies and Sanskrits and things like that. So I'll see if I can draw some parallels in the academic world so it doesn't look some ancient, disconnected knowledge. It's actually living and breathing around us. There's Bhagavatam everywhere. You can poke your finger and there will be Bhagavatam everywhere. And taste the love of Godhead. So that's how much Bhagavatam is there around us. So we'll see if we can draw some parallels. Okay. What's this? February 12th, Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, verse number 13. Did you do Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? You did? Okay. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasayame Atyanto Paratir Yatra Dukkhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukkhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukkhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha. Take it away. Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasayame Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yogadhyatmika Pumsam Matho Nishreyasayame Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha. Ladies, anybody wants? Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsam Mato Nishreyasayame Atyanto Paratiryatra Dukhasya Cha Sukhasya Cha. Give it a shot? Okay. Okay. Maybe next year. Takes it. Okay, so Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of Godhead said, yoga system, the yoga system, sorry, Adhyatmika, relating to the soul, Pumsam, of living entities, Mata is approved, Nishreyasaya, for the ultimate benefit, me, by me, sorry, Atyanta, complete, Uparati, detachment, Yatra, way, Dukkhasya, from distress, Cha, Sukhasya, from happiness, Cha, so, okay. O Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitavena Tasmai Sri Guru Namaha Vande Nandavajasrinam Padrinam Abhikshnasha Yasam Harikatodgitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. You may have noticed there are quite a few resemblances of English words there in that Sanskrit words. For example, the Adhyatmika, the ad comes into English in words like advantage, ad infinitum, addition. All the ad that you see in English comes from that Adhyatmika. So Atma, presiding the Atma. So Krishna says, Akshara Parabrahmam, Akshara Parabrahmam, no, Swabhava Adhyati Muchyate. Okay, sorry. So the nature is Adhyatma. The a priori, our constitutional position is Adhyatma. A priori is a pre-philosophical being, understanding of ourselves. A priori. So that's Adhyatmika. We are not these bodies. There's no way, logically, scientifically, metaphysically, there is no way we could be these bodies. I can prove to you. There's no way. It is impossible. Logically, scientifically, metaphysically. We are not these bodies. So there's nothing to panic. There's nothing to fear. There's no reason to fear because you are eternal. Nobody can steal anything from your consciousness. You will be a conscious entity. That's the first basis to understand. So Adhyatmika. So Devahuti had asked some questions about her social situation. Devahuti, can you hear me fine? All left and right side? Okay. So Devahuti had asked some practical questions from being her social status as a woman in the society, and being a woman, they have like male, we are a little spaced out. But women, they have additional duties, bringing up children, sticking to the position, sticking around the house. Male, we're a little spaced out. So she asks social problems, social questions, her position as a female in the society. She asks questions about her position as a holding a material body. And then she asks questions about what is the real link between the Purusha and the Prakriti. In current language, it's called Cartesian dualism. Have you heard of this term before? Cartesian dualism. Anybody? You have? Oh, fantastic. So, Cartesian dualism was spoken by Descartes. Descartes started it. René Descartes was a French philosopher. So he speaks about Cartesian dualism because from his point of view, the mechanics of the body and the soul was completely different. Completely. There was complete duality. There's no mingling. Now the question is, how the hell are we functioning? How the hell do we interact? Where does the mind and matter interact? So, which is the reason Cartesian dualism didn't become the universal philosophy. It failed. Not failed, but it helped a little bit, but it couldn't kind of give us that jet start. So, she asked questions like this: where does this body and Purusha and Prakriti interact? Social situations, gender situations. Now, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, so Kapila Muni is starting his teachings. First, Yoga Adhyatmika Pumsa. Yoga can be taken as many meanings. One of the yoga is a link. Yoga can also be called as a process. A linking. So one is linking, yoke. Like in English we have yoke. Words like yoke. That comes from yoga. And then yoga is also process. So yoga adhyatmika, someone who is involved in the process of going back to his Atma position. Pumsan, person, Purusha, same, cognitively same words. So yoga adhyatmika pumsan, someone who is interested in this process of regressing back to his level as conscious entity. So what do? Mato nishreshame. Mato, in mato, mind, same words. So I'll just do the translation. The yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. So mato nishreshame, mato, in my mind, Kapila Maharshi is saying, in my mind, it is the ultimate welfare. We're all worried about welfares. We do voluntary works. Yeah, we're going out doing 26 miles on the Harbour Bridge walks, raising funds for cancers. These are all very nice activities. Matu Nishresha. Nishresha is a welfare activity. But Kapila Muni is saying, in my mind, the best welfare is this yoga. The people that are regressing back and discovering their conscious entity position. That is my opinion. Mata and mind, same words. Mata comes from mana and mind comes from mana. They're all cognate. In every second word in Sanskrit, I can find a cognate English word. I can go on all day doing this. So, in my opinion, in my mind, he says, Nishteshami, the best welfare, Atyanto paratir yatra. Detachment, which generates detachment. I just wanted to say a couple of words about this. See, as devotees, obviously we don't have to have any hubris about it. We don't have to have any, special distinction and pride about it. But the fact is, devotional service is quite distinct and unique and special. But that should not lead us to feel proud or hubris Or you go into the society and meat eaters, drinkers, I am distinct. Now that's not why devotional service is distinct. The devotional service is distinct because it's distinct. Not to make us feel distinct and pride and hubris, haughty. No, that's not what it's meant for. So the devotional service, the devotees, the speciality of devotees, we are not worried about detachment. What we are worried about is attachment. What we are worried about is attachment to devotees, attachment to Krishna, attachment to this pursuit of cultivating our relationship back to Krishna, attachment to increase progressively, gradually every day, every minute, every second. We are more worried about attachment than detachment. Detachment is a consequence. Detachment is a byproduct. So when we hear words like this in Bhagavatam, I was talking with my daughter on the way back, on the way to the temple. I was talking about some really good speeches that I heard from Australian Prime Ministers when they retire from their position. And there is a striking example in India. When a political leader retires or he has to leave a job, they're very grumpy. It's like they're just vomiting grumpiness out of their faces and holes, pores of their bodies. But striking thing when I came to Australia, every minister, John Howard, like 8 years straight, Julia Gillard, 2 terms, Tony Abbott, Kevin Rudd, every single prime minister I came, happily leaves his job, congratulating the next person, showing emotions. And I said, that's more Vedic than the so-called Vedic India. So the Vedas and the Dharma is everywhere, it just takes different names. So when even I was hearing Skomo, his last speech in the church, you know what he said? He said, doesn't matter if you're a tradie, doesn't matter if you're a mercantile, doesn't matter if you're a militaryman, doesn't matter if you're a teacher. What are these 4 people? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. He just used his social language. So it's actually a universal thing. You can't get away from with these things. You may use different terms. You may use different psychology, physiopsychologies. But these are eternal, permanent dharmas. Don't panic that someone will come and crush it. It never happens. It's like that, you go to the fairs and there's this punching clown. You punch and then he gets up, wow. And you punch him and he gets up, wow. Like the kids are punching. Dharma is like that. You try to punch and it wakes up, wow. And if it doesn't, then Krishna comes. If it becomes too much and he wakes it up. So we don't need to panic. And the reason I was talking with my daughter about that is showing emotions, there's no problem with that. Yes? For your conditioned status, it's not eternal from a spiritual world point of view, but a conditional status point of view, it is eternal. Because Krishna, 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Prakritim cha purusham cha vidyanadu bhavapi. Vikaram cha gunam chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavam. So Prakriti and Purusha ubhavapi, vidyanadu bhavapi. These are eternal. Prakriti. And there are rules for you to be able to manage in the Prakriti nicely, which is dharmas. You could be completely happy in your sattvic stage, even if you don't know Krishna. You had no idea who Krishna is. You have no idea who God is. But you are a sattvic person with dharma. You'll be happy. Sattvam sukhe sanjayate. Raja karmani bharata. Jnanam avrutatu tama. Pramado sandayati. Nature. Dharma is, there's so many ways, so many definitions of dharma. One of them is your nature, one of them is your universal law. So dharma has various connotations. Yeah? So we'll speak about after class, I can give you more clarity. We'll have a chat. Yeah? But if you're struggling, if there is questions about like this technical, like eternal dharma and the dharma that is constituted in our conditional, it's a little technical. We can talk about it after the class. Yeah. So, as individual souls, as persons, we cannot deny our sentiments. We cannot deny our emotions. That defines us. So we are not worried about detachment. What we are worried about, what we are extremely intensely concerned about, is progressively intensifying our link with Krishna, with Radharani's connection, understanding why she is so mesmerized by Krishna. Intense attachment. Detachment is not our problem. We are not worried about detachment. Which is the reason, once you see that's Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehina Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Paramdushta Nivartate. That's where Krishna is clearly telling. Detachment is not my problem, Arjuna. You become detaching is not my problem. My problem is, please get attached to me and I give you assurance. Despite of all the dharmas there are, I give you assurance, I'll look after you. So attachment is our issue. And the more we get attached to Krishna, the better the life is. Even on a materialistic point of view. Even materially, you get much more success by developing attachment to Krishna. So both sides are taken care. So which is interesting. I mean, it's like buy one, get one free. the ultimate deal on the Black Friday or the Boxing Day, ultimate deal. So when we read terms like this, we need to get the context. Because we've seen so much in India of the sannyasis going around, detachment, oh, I'm detached, oh, I'm not talking today. Well, don't talk rubbish. So, I'm not talking, I'm not eating this. Oh, Ekadashi, I haven't put one drop of water in my bath. It's okay, but attachment to Krishna is what our problem is. So that's where we're coming from. Yeah? We're not worried about detachment. Just get our attention on Gauranitai, we'll be fine. So we're not, we okay with this? We'll move on. Okay, Nishreyasha, Dukkhasya cha, Sukhasya cha. So, I read the translation. So, we're talking about bhakti, so I just wanted to say a couple of words about bhakti before we go into the purport. Here is the problem. The Sankhya, the base of Sankhya, I might have spoken this in last class, but Sankhya is, we got to really get hold of Sankhya. We got to really get a good grip on Sankhya. We're not going to progress in Bhagavatam, we're not going to progress in our devotional life, we're not going to progress in helping other devotees, which is the most important in the three that goes to the top. So we're not going to do much if we don't get the Sankhya. We've got to get a grip of Sankhya philosophy. And the reason we got to do that is because without understanding what we are stuck in, without understanding what our problems are, where the hell are we going to get freed from? If you want to get freed from something, we need to understand what is actually bounding us, right? So Sankhya philosophy goes that steps through. So we got to get a hold of Sankhya. We got to get a grip of Sankhya. Once we get that, once we get the foundation, then it's easy, which is the reason Kapila Muni is going to go into next 6 chapters, maybe 7, maybe 8. Yeah, 7, 8. So he's really grilling and drilling us down into Sankhya. So we got to get Sankhya. But to get the Sankhya is the foundation of devotional service or whatever we're doing. The Bhakti Yoga is a better relatable in contemporary world outside. They don't understand when we say devotional service outside. I was doing book sets today. On Friday I was knocking doors somewhere in the Hills district, and was like, I came to Hare Krishna, they called it devotional service. We don't get it. I obviously took time and explained to him. So, Bhakti Yoga, if that Sankhya is the basis, but there is another basis within Sankhya, we got to really understand the three gunas. That's what's binding us. So if you don't understand what's binding us, how are you going to get free of them? Doesn't work. So we need to understand the three modes of material nature. Once we understand the three modes of material nature, the effects of the three modes of material nature, what platform is the mind and matter interacting, once we get all this basic grip, then we are in a position of calling out Krishna because we understand our desperation. We understand how strongly we are stuck. Then when we call out Krishna, it's interesting, isn't it? When we are in books, you just rock up and an hour and two and there's no books going. All of a sudden this call comes out from the heart. Krishna. And then the books fly, like the sets are flying. Not just the sets keep flying. It's very interesting. It happens like every day, day in, day out it happens. You go with your, I'm a book distributor. And then it doesn't work. And then like this call comes out from the heart. Krishna, help me penetrate. And then the sets going out. So yeah, that once we understand this binding, then the call comes out. Then we are connecting. Then the juice is coming out. Then we connect. Then the yoga happens. Then the constitutional position. The pain is circumstantial, but the bliss is constitutional position. Our limit is temporary, but our potential is permanent. Our limits are temporary. The limits that we see in ourselves, in others, they're temporary, but the potential is permanent. Our pains are circumstantial, but our bliss in yoga with Krishna, that's constitutional. Then the rasa comes out. Then yam labdha chapram labdhe manite nadikam tata yatro paramete chittam. Yam labdha chapram nadikam tata. You don't want dukkha matindriya, like extreme dukkha happens, but you don't want to move from it. Yam labdha chapram labham manite nadikam tata yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Then yam labdha chaparam labam manete nadikam tata. That yoga comes, that juice comes, and then you don't want to move. You're like, I don't want to move. So, dukkham atyantikam. Physical distresses, they can come, but I'm happy. This is my constitutional position. So I'll repeat again. Our limitations are temporary, but our potential for freedom is permanent. Our pains are circumstantial, but our bliss is constitutional. So once you understand what's binding you, then you come into this yoga. Yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. No challenges. Then you're like, yes, I'm going to do this. Not because you're forcing, because you're so happy. Your true joy comes out. That's the benefit of Sankhya. So I'll just quickly do, before I run out of time, and I don't want to delay your breakfast. Who am I to come between you and your breakfast? So I'll just do the three modes of material nature quickly. Is it okay from contemporary perspective? How does it look like? So three modes of material nature are usually sattva, rajas, and tamas. Simple. That's what conditions us. That's the ropes that are conditioning us. And Krishna says, interesting, in 14th chapter, I think 9 or 11, I'm a Gita thumper. Gita basher. Okay. Rajas tamas cha abhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. First, actually, he says, sattvat sanjayate sukham. With the mode of sattva, there's three modes, sattva, rajas, tama. Sattva sukham sanjayate raja karmani bharata, gnanam avrutatu tama, pramade sanjayatyuta. So by sattva, being on the sattva platform, the happiness, the goodness automatically comes. You don't even need to know Krishna, but you'll be happy on sattvic platform. Krishna says that. Yeah? Karmana sukrutasya. Karmana sukrutasya. Because of your karma, take your happiness. I don't have any problem. Yeah? So, karmana sukrutasya. So he doesn't have any problem. You could be in sattvic platform, dharmic platform and be happy. They're very happy. Then there is raja, which is kind of like a passionate. Rajas is a mix of... Raja in Sanskrit is dust. It's a little dusty. It's passion, it's formation. The final is tama, which is destruction. In a destruction mode, I won't go into psychological, but destruction that you see. So I'll just give you some contemporary words from academics. Yeah, it's not so limited to some Hindu religion or something. Rajas, tamas. There's actually contemporary academic people use these words. So tamas in academics is called entropy, the force of entropy. You heard of this? Anybody? If anybody had a chance to read Devamrita Swami's book called Searching for Vedic India, classic book, classic treatise. He makes an interesting point. He's refuting Stephen Hawking's and Darwin's, and he says there's more chances of entropy, destruction, than evolution. Did you think about that? People talk about natural selections and there's, the evolution due to natural selections and all that. Actually, Devamrita Swami Maharaj says, wait a minute, I beg to differ. There's more chance for entropy, destruction, this force of entropy. You leave this building for 50 years and come back. I always talk with my daughter Meera. There is a nuclear explosion in Europe and people had to leave because of the rays, radioactive rays. They come back 50 years. David Attenborough from the BBC. God, what's that show? Anyway, it'll come to me. He does the Earth, Planet, all the geographical, the wildlife shows. So he goes back in 50 years, vegetation, wild animal, forests, the whole city has been encroached by wildlife and forest back again, 50 years. So there's this destruction power going on. That's entropy. And he says there's more chances, there's more case to fight for entropy than evolution because everything is destroying. So he says, well, how the hell does evolution work? Doesn't make sense. Because everything you see is destroying. And even if your natural selection, some life came, how can you define beingness? Like being you, experiencing you. How can you define that? You can't define that. So there's all this qualia. They call it qualia, the individual beingness. It's called qualia. David Chalmers, Australian professor, he introduced it. So he says, where does this all come from? So entropy, there's more chance for entropy than evolution. So what is this sustaining power that is maintaining the entropy and maintains the formation of this universe? Keep this on the sync. They call it fine-tuning. You heard that word, fine-tuning? They call it the fine-tuning of universe. It's because of the critical density and the actual density. I need a whole another class to explain. It's going to take 50 minutes. So I don't want to go deep into it. But there's something called a critical density and actual density of the universe, and it's called fine-tuning. And it has to be one. The critical density by the actual density has to be one. If it's not 1, if it's even 1.000000000, at the 64th place another 1, the whole universe will tumble down. So it's called critical density. So how is this entropy, where everything was supposed to be destroyed but still being maintained? So now we bring what's called the sattva, the maintaining power of Vishnu. It's called stasis. So we went through entropy as a tamas force, the destruction force of Shiva, the Rudra. And then we went with stasis, which is the maintaining power opposing this destruction in this world. So we have stasis. But before destruction happens, before someone does maintenance, things have to be placed in order and formed. Then it's formation, which is Rajas. Yeah? So, tamas, entropy, destructing power, which is Rudra. Stasis, the sattvic mode, the maintaining power, which is the most hardest. Maintenance is the most hardest, right? Very hard. Maintaining a family, maintaining a temple, maintaining a city, maintaining a school. That's the hardest part. Destroying, you can, done. But the maintaining is, which is the longer and the hardest job. So which is the reason Vishnu takes control of that part. And then we have formation, which is Rajas. So now interestingly, this Rajas, Tamas and Sattva, these modes are not just acting outside in the external world. Now this is where we come into Sankhya. These are powers acting on our psychological, internally as a persona also. In our characters, in our psychology. That's when we need help from Carl Jung, the father of psychiatrists and the father of psychology. Anybody heard of Carl Jung? Yeah, you don't, yeah. So Carl Jung, this is where we need some help from Carl Jung, because he talks a lot. He did a lot of regression, Sanskrit, he read Gnosticism, he said everything. He's done like a whole plethora, and he talks about this. Our persona is comprised of 4 things. Our psychophysical reality is comprised of 4 things. One, he calls it our persona, what you can see me. Radhika Prasad Das, Varun, Badmi, such and such family, retired banker, or I don't know, whatever you want to give me. Grumpy, no, it's okay. So you can define my persona, but then he calls something called very interesting. He calls a shadow self, an unconscious self, that is galvanizing and cooking us. It never comes out. We don't want to show it. There's another called unconscious being. Then he talks about number 4 is anima. Chit. The anima, the chit potency, the ability to interact with this material world. And then finally he calls the self, which is Atma. So this Rajas, Tamas and Sattva are not just acting outside in the external world as a destructive and formation and the maintenance power, they're also working in psychology. So how does that work in psychology? In our psyche, it works, person in a more of a tamas mode is always like, just in a destructive mode, destroying himself, just pushing needles into his nerves, just lying down, just drugging himself, or just doesn't want to see the sun outside, just show me a couch and I'll sleep there and just have a few drinks and just, I don't want to know the external world. That's a kind of tamasic mode. And then we have Raja, which is passionate, getting onto the top, going up, getting onto the top. So this is Rajas. And we have Sattvic mode, Sattam Sukhe Sanjayati. They're fine with seeing everybody. They do it for the sake of kartavyamiti me partha. Krishna says, they just do it as kartavyamiti. Yashthavyamiti. It has to be done, so we have to do it. It is my duty, so it has to be done. They are on the sattvic mode. Yashthavyamiti me partha, kartavyamiti me partha. Krishna says, they do it because they think it's their duty, and they're happy with it. You find this kind of people everywhere. I was traveling with my wife in New Zealand once, and I lost track of my fuel meter. And I was standing in the middle of nowhere in the inland of South Island. Fuel is going down. My wife is thirsty. I'm thirsty. The next petrol fuel station looks like I'm not going to reach. And then here comes the farmer. And then I was like, and then he stops by. Did I tell you the story before? I did. And then he stops by and he says, what's the problem? I said, it looks like we're running out of fuel and we're very thirsty. We're not going to make it to the next station. He just goes out to the ute, gives me a gallon of pure spring water, gallon of fuel, puts in my car, and you Bob's your uncle. Off you go. Have a good, safe journey. This is the place, guides me how to get to the nearest fuel station. No relation with me. Just on a sattva platform. No recipe. He doesn't need anything back from me. He didn't ask me for money. Here is a gallon of water, pure spring. Here is a gallon of your petrol. Here is the nearest petrol station. Don't mess it up. Straight home. Sattva, no. And then I was like shocked. I was looking at him and I was like, see you later. So every sattva is going everywhere. So there is sattva platform. These are people psychologically healthy. And there is Raja platform, and it comes in shades. Rajas tamas cha vibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata, rajas sattvam tamas cheva, tamas sattvam rajas tatha. 14th chapter, very interesting chapter. So they come in shades. Krishna says, rajas tamas cha vibhuyo. Sometimes this is great, sometimes that is great. Sattvam bhavati bharata, rajas sattvam tamas chaiva. Sometimes rajas comes in higher proportion, tamas comes from higher. Entropy comes in from higher proportion, stasis come from in higher proportion. Even psychologically, this entropy, stasis and formation, psychologically they're always cooking us, galvanizing us. This is conditioning. This is what conditioning means. That's how we get conditioned. You're fixing a personality. Based on the personality, you're controlling, you're doing, you're performing karma. And every time you do that, your subtle body is being affected. And based on what your will, what happens? You get your next body. It's reserved. So how long are we going to go like this for? Can we put an end to this nonsense? Can we put an end to this nonsense? Yeah? Let's do it. Let's give this knowledge to everybody we see. We cannot just grow ourselves. Your Krishna consciousness is dependent how much you give Krishna to others. Your advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent on how much you give Krishna to others. We cannot grow ourselves. It's a lonely flight. You'll need a lot of popcorn on the way back to Vaikuntha. Our Krishna consciousness is dependent, directly proportional to how much you give Krishna to others. Even when we talk Krishna, like the original mover, the unmoved mover, the Anadi, Radhir, Govinda, we're not talking about some lonely person, enclosed in some South Indian temple or something. We're talking about a God who has unlimited times, infinite times better than this universe. See, that's where I was going. Good segue. Here is the problem before entering into a devotional life. Here is a problem before entering into a relationship with Krishna. There's two problems. One problem is envy of God, which is the reason we are here. It's a tough fact. It's a very bitter thing to know. But the reason we are here, truth has to be spoken. Call a spade a spade. You heard of that saying before? You got to call a spade a spade. So the reality, the fact is, we are here because we are envious of Krishna. End of story. We are envious of God. But if we don't come in terms with this envy of God, because that's how we are programmed. It's right from kindergarten, you're programmed to perform and come to the top of the class. You're programmed in your job to somehow become the leader, the project leader, then the general manager, then the EGM, then the whatnot, then the CEO. And you're pushed to go on the top. So that envy of God is still continuing in our psychology, in this entropy formation and stasis, sattva, rajas, tama, and pushing us to this top. Envy of God is inherent. We have to come in terms with this. Bring it out. I remember one time I was in front of Balaji temple in front of DD, and I don't know why it occurred to me. I said, God, help me come into terms this envy I got for you. Just throw some light into this. I don't want to be artificially showing everybody that I'm a devotee or I'm trying to practice. I don't want to do that. I'm sick of it. I said, I'm sick of it. Let me deal with this envy for you. We have to deal with this. And the reason we have to deal, this is a nice day to talk about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I was reading Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's translation from Ye Yathamam Prapadyante, Tam Tateva Bhajamyam. You know how he translates a little different to Prabhupada. He says, as you submit, I serve you based on your submission. Prabhupada says, I accept you. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur translates, he's saying, I serve you. God is saying, I serve you. That's why he's God. Ye yathamam prapadyante mam tam sateva bhajamyaham mama vartmanam vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Sarvasha is not India. It's not this planet. Sarvasha means every galaxy, every universe, every speck of spiritual and universal words. That's why he's God. Because he has this compassion, this depth, this love to go and help everybody, serve them. That's why we are not God, because I don't have that compassion. So his position is very, very properly situated. There's no need for envy for his superior position, because he is happy to give himself to us. He makes Shaktavaisha avatars, brings them up to his level. Do we do that? Do we do that? Are we doing that? Are we empowering every single person in our life to become greater than us? Do we do that? I seriously doubt. That's why he's God. Because he is happy to serve everybody, not just serve, he brings Shaktavaisha avatars, he brings them to his level. Look at that depth. Look at the depth of that love. So he's properly situated in that supreme position. There's no need to envy him. If anything, cry for his love. How do you have so much love? Just be enamored and mesmerized. How do you have so much love? That's our position. So envy of God really needs to be tackled. It doesn't surface. It doesn't come out quickly. We don't want to... If I say I'm envious of God, people will think I'm in Maya. My devotional, I have a position in devotees. But face it. The second problem we have, before getting into bhakti, is we have a problem with eternity that doesn't surface. What we have is because we are conditioned in this material world, it's better to see you guys. So because we are conditioned in this material world, and we are conditioned, the way we have been conditioned in our families and socially and in countries and nationally, we cannot imagine that there is actually a life outside this body. There is actually a life, a full potential, enhanced, much more capable, much more efficient life outside this body. Please let me assure you. Please let me assure you. The body is not the end. The life is much more enhanced, much more unified, much more integrated, much more qualified outside this body than this body. I can prove, logically, scientifically, I can prove it to you. You may hear about OBEs, outside bodily experience, and NDEs, near-death experience, and you may have gotten a little glimpse of those things, like people go out of the body and they see their relatives and the lights in the shining and the clouds, and even they meet their dead puppies and pets and all. That's just, that doesn't start to explain. There is much more enhanced, much more capable, much more efficient, much more potential outside this body. Try to get that form. Satchidananda Rupa, your original constitutional position as a conscious entity, as an Atma. That's what you are. Try to get that. We have it's called ethereophobia. You heard of this before? Anybody? Ethereophobia. Google it when you go home. Just Google it. Ethereophobia. It's called a fear of eternity. In our minds, we don't know if we outgo out of body, how is there a life? What do you do? Like there's a movie, Shawshank Redemption. Anybody watch that? It's a good movie. A little grotesque, but this guy, he leaves Brooke. Remember Brooke was here? The guy, he lives in this Shawshank Redemption, in this like a rehabilitation, very strict center outside America for people like third degree. We're talking about mass murderers and psychopaths. He's 50, he lives in 50 years outside. He's brought into the society and just doing normal jobs. You know what he does? You know what he does? Huh? Hangs himself. You watch that movie? He hangs himself. Because he can't cope. He can't cope freedom. He can't cross the road. Do you remember? Just kills himself. And then the second guy follows. He's about to kill himself, but anyway, he's rescued by his old mate. We're not doing Shawshank Redemption here. Are we? So, we have no idea what happens if we are out of this body. But let me assure you, there is much more relationships. We are worried about relationships, aren't we? Can we survive without relationships? Come on. We want relationships. We want friendships. We want paternal affections. We have people that hate us, so we can have some rasa with them. We have people that enemies. We have relationships. It nurtures us. But there is much more relationships. There's much more commitments. There's much more enhanced love outside this body than inside this body. Because you are not this body. Is that the first time you heard in an ISKCON Srimad Bhagavatam class? What is this? 15,236 times. You are not this body. So we need to really get in terms with this envy for God and this ethereophobia, fear of eternity. What am I going to do out of this body? You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just you go out, everything breaks, the road cracks, nothing's going to happen to you. A big building comes down. As an Atma, you'll just get up and walk to your next service. If you are focused on your service. Provided, condition, contingency. If you're focused on your service, if you're focused on your relationship with Krishna, you leave this body, you'll just keep. You know the Dadichi Munis, did I give you that example before? Dadichi Muni, he was asked to provide his bones, his body by Indra to kill his opponent Vritrasura. You may know the story, of course. Remember the story? The Dikshimuni initially says, no, 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 just testing Indra. Later on, he gives his body. He wakes up, and the body and the bones are being used. He doesn't even notice. He's just walking. Oh, where's the body? Oh, yeah, sure. He's just walking. So we are not this body. So we need to get in terms with the envy of God. Envy of God is why we envy others in this world also. Someone grows, someone becomes better than us. Envy. Why am I not in the center? Why don't they praise me? Imagine if you're at a big book distribution seminar or something, and there's like a, South Pacific and Australasia getting together or something like that. And imagine like you're a book distributor or something, and everybody gets an award, and your name was not even mentioned. And you distributed books for 15 years. Straight, 5 days, boom, boom, every day. Can you come back from there like just digesting the pill and walk back normally? I can't hear you. Yeah, but there's more to it. I think we need to talk. We need to talk after the class. We really need to talk. It's a little bit more than that. Can we actually be happy with our connection with Krishna? We're satisfied that Krishna can watch you wherever you are. Krishna can see you, where he can taste the sweetness in your heart wherever you are. So these are the things. That's why we envy others. We have fear of eternity. So I'll just quickly recap. So what we were talking today is Sankhya. And the basis of Sankhya. And Sankhya is the basis of devotional service. And the three gunas, the modes of material nature, are the basis of Sankhya. We need to understand our modes. So I compared Rajas, Tamas and Sattvas to the entropy formation and stasis. And it's not just externally, it's also internally happening. Psychologically, we are affected by these three modes. So it comes in different proportions. We are not worried detachment, we are not worried about detachment, we are worried about attachment with Krishna. Yeah. And then we spoke about, before we go into bhakti, we spoke about these two things that we really need to get a grip with, is envy of God, envy of other souls. And what was the second one? Yeah. Don't worry about it. And what does Sattva, Rajas, Tama as a psychologically do to us is three problems that is creating. Sattva, Rajas, Tama. It's major problems. There's so many other, but I'll categorize into three. Sex, money, wealth, and fame. It looks like I got your attention here. This is the problem. You got to get to grips with these three things. Sex, money, fame. These three modes of material is cooking us around. This fame. People will die for fame. Money, fame, sex. You got to get a grip on these three things. You got to get a firm hold on this. Once you understand